Now let's go to our first conversation for today. It's a two-in-one discussion. A lot of issues around the Chatham House report, which we started with yesterday, advising Nigeria to take on some initiatives following the economic reforms. But first, all marketers under the aegis of Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria have condemned the constant reduction of fuel prices, saying marketers are still counting losses. Despite deregulation, Petrol says there is need for a regulation that will make it mandatory that prices can only be changed after 6 months. In a statement by Petrol Publicity Secretary Mr. Joseph Obele, the association made a U-turn, saying imports should be encouraged to end a monopoly in the market. Recently, Dangote Refinery dropped the price of premium motor spirit from 890 naira to 825 naira at the gantry. This has also led to a back and forth. Also, we see NNPC also bringing down prices. We see Dangote also bringing down prices. Nigerians are saying they want this to continue. But let me speak to Professor Ken Ife. He is a development economist. He joins me via Zoom from Abuja to start this conversation this afternoon. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining the program.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Prof. I'm sure you heard my introduction there talking about the back and forth with regards to price of PMS at this very time. Prof, what is your understanding of this, if we call it a price war at this time? Because we see that from 1,300 naira, today we are buying PMS, in some cases 860 naira, and some say it's possible that it might even get lesser. What do you make of this in a deregulated market?
Well, I'm glad you used the word deregulated market, because we don't have, I mean, we've had it so bad. The Nigerian citizens have had it so bad for quite some number of years now. And that day has arrived when they're all now laughing all the way to their bank accounts. See, the oil marketer's position is a fallacy. You cannot fight the competition by importing substandard fuel products into the country and not subjecting it to a transparent assessment and testing. Secondly, the PIA prevents you from doing this until there is a declaration that there is a shortage. And there's no such declaration, because at the moment, the modular refineries, the NNPC refinery and the Dangote refinery are producing surplus to requirement. So there was no such declaration, and for them to import, and for them to be importing means they are sourcing dollars that will eventually hemorrhage our foreign reserves. So if the oil marketers that are making all that noise should go and get license and go and set up their own modular refineries, we have over 100 oil fields, what do you call it again? The marginal oil fields, which have less than 50 million barrels. Let them go and set up something there. That's the position. That's what it is.
Let's go back again to the PIA and all that surrounds that document. We know what it took us before we got to that point. There is this argument by some analysts that in every country, we must have an operational national oil company. They must always have a place in the market. So, and that is where the NNPCL comes in. So looking at this and the argument of monopoly in the market, do you think that we don't need an operational national oil company? In Brazil, I think we have the likes of Petrobras. In the US, we have an oil company. In the UK, there's a national oil company. All over the world. So what do you think, or what should be the role of a national oil company? Maybe that's the way I should ask the question.
No, it is okay to have a national oil company, and that should play to the game. We have to have a level playing field, and it has to play to the rules of the game. The rules of the game is that there's a PIA now that has created the upstream commission and the midstream authority. They all have complementary roles. The law says those who are mining crude will have to submit to the upstream authority, who will tell them what they can export. In other words, the law says priority of the crude must meet the local demand capacity, priority. So that's why he has to, on the advice of the midstream authority, which will be advising the upstream commission on the capacities, local capacities, so that they can now allocate what should go to the country and what can go out. That's number one. Then also, it should also be advising it on when the state of play in terms of the production capacity. If we have any evidence that there is shortfall in the production volumes that are unable to be met by local processing capacity, then it will advise it, and then they will now issue license for importation to augment the deficit. But if there's no deficit, there's no question why you should do that. But even if you do that, which will be against the law, then the law also requires that there has to be a transparent assessment or testing of these products that are imported to ensure that they conform to the regulations. And they don't, because that's why they're not even submitting to this. And because neither NNPC nor the medium authority has an internationally accredited laboratory of American standard that is driving this. So you have that, and then there are many parameters though. You have the density, you have the specific gravity, you have the API gravity, you have octane number, you have sulfur content, you have pour point, flash point. There are 12 of them, which should tell us what is going on in this content, and which will also point to the level of adulteration of the product. They are not submitting themselves to transparent testing mechanism. Dangote has far higher quality standards. Why don't they go together and go and then test it there? But they're not. So you have, what you now have is dumping, sabotage, economic sabotage. They are now dumping on substandard products into our country. And there is evidence, because you've seen when some cases when you have too much ethanol in the product, and then you also know that the thing burns far more. And there are also experiments they are not happy about that compares the two products. But the fact remains that those high sulfur content destroy people's engines. It destroys our health. They affect the equipment that are being used, the cars that are being driven, the generators that are running these things. So we have all those health hazards. But the second point is predatory pricing, because the foreign countries may subsidize these products even though they won't have it in their country. They'll subsidize them to enter into our market and then destroy our production capacity. And that is anti-trade. I mean, it's unacceptable. So on those two counts, we're going to take a back seat. That is not welcome at all.
Prof,
we have to play to the...
I'm going to follow up with this, because I discussed with a petroleum engineer looking at that comparison that was done. And he said if that should have been done, the authorities should take charge of that process. Not someone just coming up, buying a generator and coming up on social media. That is subject to, well, some level of confirmation. That's on one side. But there's also that argument, Prof, that we cannot allow one person, for example, Dangote, monopolizing the market. Many say if that happens, then Nigerians might be at mercy. Yes, it's a 650,000 barrels capacity refinery. I agree with you. A lot of capacity, a lot of fallout products that we can make from crude oil, you know, lubricants and all of that. We can go on and on, plastics, fertilizer, urea, and all of that. But many say that we cannot allow. What do you make? Okay, let me ask you. What do you think if that market is monopolized? Do you think it would help benefit Nigerians better?
There is absolutely no question of monopolizing the market.
Okay.
Because up until 10 years ago, it was only NNPC refinery that we are producing in the country. And that is not monopoly. And then up until 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, NNPC had the monopoly to import PMS into the country. And then nobody saw that as a monopoly. In the same period, NNPC was exclusively exporting crude and doing a crude swap, sending all the crude to foreign refiners, some of where they have some interest, and then bringing only one item, which is PMS. When in fact, you have more than 100 products in a crude. you have the petrol, PMS, you have the what do you call it, the diesel, you have lubricants, you have kerosene, you have jet fuel, you have, name it. It's a long list. Urea, you have benzene, you have all kinds of alkylation, all of these, butadiene, all kinds of products. But they'll tell us that they're only bringing back PMS and that this business is not profitable. So federal government go and bring, it's under recovery, go and bring subsidy. And government will go and borrow over $4 billion to subsidize. Now, Dangote is doing exactly the same thing that they're doing. And it's okay. Look at how many products he has sent shiploads to Shell to Shell. He has sent 2 shiploads to Saudi Aramco. And if this product doesn't meet the highest international standard, these guys will not be buying it from him. He's exporting them and earning revenue. Look, this man doesn't need Nigerian market, to be honest, because he's already opening shops across Africa, 4 African countries, and it will be more. And then he's exporting this product and earning revenue. But he had the sympathy of what the citizens in this country are going through, being exploited for so long. That's why he's sending the crews in there. And then look at what happened in Christmas. For 20 years, we have been suffering every Christmas. Unitide will have high cost of fuel because there's hoarding of it, there's long queue, the prices hike, and then the transport costs hike. All the food coming in experience high transport costs. Inflation is always highest. That was not happened last December. Last December, he took out the equalization fund that was required. It required, equalization is owing over 100 billion naira to the oil marketers, and there's been stopped by the PIA. So oil marketers are dagger drawn looking for their 100 billion, as they say. But for Dangote to maintain uniform price across the country, not only by dropping it, but maintaining it across the country, he had to spend over 10 billion naira on equalization. That is the transportation cost to maintain that level, that same thing. So that's what it's costing him. So effectively, what Bola Tinubu has done, our president has transferred subsidy from public sector to private sector. That is music to the ear of millions of Nigerians. And now that we have opportunity to enjoy the fruits of a healthy competition, now we have marketers who are just traders and then telling us that Dangote should raise his price. Who told you that you can import substandard products into this country and then destroy the country? Look, ECOWAS has a regulation that was in effect from January this year, end of January this year. We should have a limit of 30 ppm of sulfur. Go and look at more than 6 times more sulfur in the shenanigans that I'm plotting into this country.
Now,
it's not unsustainable, it's illegal, and it cannot be tolerated.
Prof, moving forward, like I said in my introduction, in a deregulated market, there should be competition. And of course, competition is allowed. And that is where we see that price war, where we see, different people begin to come up with prices. What about smaller refineries, the modular refineries and all of them? How do you see them also thriving in this market? We've seen crude production, a bit better than what it used to be, and there's a target of doing more than 2 million barrels moving forward by the federal government. Do you think that if there is steady production, that many of these modular refineries will also get their share of crude, and we can also, have options at the end of the day? More options.
Of course, we have options. When the president agreed to the Naira to crude swap, he accommodated the modular refineries. It wasn't just Dangote, but Dangote was quite ready. He said Dangote and other modular refineries. So they're all in the same game of accessing the crude at local prices and then selling the PMS in return to those. But the fact of the matter is that many more modular refineries will come to play. And I'm saying to the president, these oil marketers, each one of them has $75 million to import within 3 months, modular refinery that will refine 20,000 barrels a day. Please let the music play. Give more of them license, let them go. And even those officers, some of the officers in the midstream authority that are not prepared to play the rule, let them go and get their own license and start building modular refinery. That is the name of the game. That is the big boy in town. And secondly, let me tell you this. When you have the likes of Dangote refinery, they create what you call midstream and downstream economic opportunities. That company, with all the multifaceted products that is producing, all the chemicals that is producing, you can have not less than 5,000 manufacturing petrochemical manufacturing companies making tires, making plastics, organoplastics, all chemicals, because they are producing platform chemicals for them. And with those platform chemicals, they can make butadiene, they could make all kinds of other products, all chloro products, nitro products, hundreds and hundreds of organic products, and will stop importing those. That is the difference that it makes. Just look at their transportation network. They have more than 20,000 trailers. This thing has employed not less than 40,000 workers. They look at the people that they've trained, hundreds of thousands of Nigerians being trained. So what it is whatever small factory you want to set up to process and make chemicals, you know that your supply is guaranteed because the refinery is right there in Ibeju. And then you can get, so all these companies, downstream companies and midstream companies will all flourish. But that's not what these importers don't want those. They just want to flood here with all kinds of things that you cannot verify. And they make us import dependent, perpetually import dependent. They should find other businesses or go upstream. That's what it should be. That is the case. We have the same in Dangote and cement. Well, Obasanjo said, if you want to enter the cement, go and show me your factory. And then they'll give them license. All right. Now, we are now a net exporter of cement. From producing 20% of the cement we need, we are now net exporter.
All right. Prof, just give me a minute. We have some live pictures. We're going to come back to our conversation. Yes, we have some live pictures from Port Harcourt to where the governor of the state is also going to be doing some commissioning of projects. Yes, but Business Nigeria continues on all our platforms. Yes, we will be going to Port Harcourt also to get feeds from there. Of course, live pictures that you see on television there is live from Port Harcourt, where there's a commissioning of, I think, zonal hospitals. A lot of commissioning, inauguration of projects has been on in recent times, but I think that continues in Port Harcourt at this time. Okay, now, Prof, before I let you go, it's been an interesting conversation, I must say. But before I let you go, Prof, I'm sure you've seen the report from Chatham House. And, just like you said, a lot of positive policies from the president that has helped the oil and gas industry. And they're also commending the president with some of his policies that has also sustain the economy. So how would you react to some of the suggestions? And of course, that's the entirety of that report.
Well, that report, I actually commend them for taking their time to look into Nigerian situations. But the report, from my perspective, is far from the reality of our current economic situation, which is really described as stagflation. Now, let me come to you on that. One is that the premise is that Nigeria is an import-dependent economy, both by virtue of our legacy, colonial legacy, but also by design, by international division of labor, by repressive, extractive economic relations between Nigeria, Africa, and the global north. That's number one. So you must know where the rain started beating you. That's what the chicken says. Now, second point is that oil and gas account for 90% of our forex income, 79% for crude, and 11% from gas. Devaluation of our currency does not increase any revenue. It doesn't give us any more forex. It gives us absolutely nothing. All it gives us is suffering for our people and more impoverishment, and it drives away the legacy multinationals in Nigeria. 80% of, besides Dangote's refinery and their cement, 80% of the manufacturing capacity in Nigeria depend on imported raw materials. So when you devalue, the currency goes high. They can't afford the raw material that we're importing into the country, and they're not prepared to adapt their products to Nigerian domestic products. So they pack their bags and leave. And many of them are going to Ghana. That's number one. Now, that's number two. Number three, cheaper Naira has not encouraged FDI inflow. To the reverse, the FDI has melted away to the point that not even foreign companies are taking positions in Nigeria, buying cheap corporate assets, so that when money gets revalued, they will make money. They're not interested because there are far more fundamental issues, structural issues that report ignored. The report talks about Nigerian buying dollar and then investing them abroad. There's no such thing. Nigerians have dollarized Nigerian economy. The dollar they are buying, when you share FAC to state governments, the following money they go and buy dollar. Those dollars are here in Nigeria. Nigeria has been dollarized, and they are, they still as a store of value, and they are trading with it and speculating on the currency, on the forex currency. That's what they're doing. They're not taking it abroad and investing. No, it's here. So the governors will buy it today. They will use part of it to settle the foreign companies working in their states for them, and they have to buy it immediately they got the Naira, because if they give time, it will devalue more because of the risk, because they are all betting on it. So that takes that out. The other one is that the balance of payment that improved wasn't because of devaluation. That is fallacy. The balance of payment that improved was because you remove subsidy. The subsidy was taking over $4 billion every year, much more than that. And that's what you removed, and it was almost $5 billion that is on balance of payment. So it's got nothing to do with devaluation. And then also that subsidy has now been transferred to a private sector, as I have just finished arguing with you, what the Dangote has been doing. Now, also the imported inflation has caused more misery to Nigerian masses. Honestly, it's unbelievable. And then also you have dumping, because the Naira is so cheap now, people are dumping their goods in Nigeria. And that is not helpful. And I've just explained to you the health challenge, the environmental degradation, all kinds of adversities, and the fact that they are targeting our productive capacity to decimate our capacity. You've seen that in textile. You've seen that in textile, that 2 million jobs have gone. And throughout Lagos, Kaduna, and Kanu, and textile industrial graveyards. Why is that? Because Nigeria and India are the biggest consumers of textile fabrics. Every Friday and Saturday, we have Ashebi. There's one wedding, there's something they're spending. Men don't buy that much because we have about 10, 15 suits. The women spend the money. So this is the market. So that's why they're dumping their textile goods here, and then they finish all our industries. And they want to do the same in petroleum. And look at over $10 billion that went in repairing, what's it called, the petroleum refinery. Over $10 billion in 10 years. And they were comfortable that all the refineries are dead. So export all the crude, exporting crude, raw material. I mean, it's a joke. So the thing is this, the analysis doesn't add up. It doesn't add up because you are not exporting anything. The crude and gas are international prices. We have no control over those prices. We have even no control over production volume. So unless Nigeria is producing something substantial that accounts for 30, 40% of our forex, then, and outside is the realm of international fixed price, then you can talk about devaluation. Now it's misery that is causing us, honestly. And we have to begin to revalue our currency because we want to reduce the suffering. And then inflation is completely out of control because of the level of devaluation that took place. So, I don't buy any of those at all. I'm sorry to say that.
I must thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Interesting conversation. I must tell you. Professor Kenny Faye is a development economist. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day, Prof.